Good evening, everybody, and welcome to DBHDD's launch of our Resiliency and Wellness Toolkit for students, parents, and teachers. We're very excited to bring this resource for you during this pandemic. We've had all kinds of things going on, and it may be leaving us all feeling a little off kilter. We know some children are in virtual school, some children are face-to-face school, some children are doing a mixture of that, and I know some parents who are new to this online teaching arena, and parents trying to work from home and help children work from home, parents who are working outside of the home and wondering if children are at home working, and teachers trying to figure out how to do a new classroom as if teaching weren't already a big challenge. So DBHDD has put together a great toolkit that we hope will be beneficial to everyone on all of those levels. We've got a little bit of something for everyone. And we just wanted to say today that we are thinking about you. We have your mental wellness in mind, and we're going to do all that we can to support you. So I want to turn it over right now to our division director, Monica Johnson, for some welcoming words. Monica?
Thank you, Jill. I just want to take a minute first to just thank you, your team, your partners, all the stakeholders, everyone that has participated in putting this resource toolkit together. I've had an opportunity to go through it, not from the lens of Monica Johnson, the Behavioral Health Division Director, but from the perspective of a parent. So I am a mom first. I have two sons. Noah is a freshman away in college for the first time this year, and my other son, Micah, started his 10th grade year. So as a parent, it has been challenging, but what I have learned is that not only am I more resilient than I give myself credit for, because there have been plenty of days where I've beaten myself up for feeling like I'm not doing the best I can to support both of them, who are living very different lives as it comes to their education. But for Micah in particular, my 10th grader, this is very personal for me. He, obviously like every other student across the country and in the world to some degree, had his school year interrupted last year in the spring. He hated virtual learning. It's not his go-to mode for how he learns. And he struggled with that in the spring. And so I was very anxious about what would the fall bring, what choices do I make, what is the school going to do? The plans changed a couple of times before they landed at where we are. I am in a school district south of the city, below the airport, and I've been very pleased at what our district has done. And so it has allowed for my son, Micah, to get acclimated to working or learning remotely. But I think that's due to all of the work that our educators and administrators are doing in partnership with communities such as what's coming together today for this event. So now that he's given some more options around, should he stay working? I say work from home, but he's working from home, but learning remotely, or should he go back into the classroom setting? He now doesn't hate it as in the same way that he did in the spring. And I think that speaks to the adjustments that are being made on all sides as we all get further acclimated. So to have a resource toolkit that can help parents like myself, parents that are out there trying to figure it out. I'm still trying to figure things out every day. I'm like, is he okay socially? Is he okay emotionally? Trying to ask him the right questions, have the right conversations, because this is an unprecedented time that we find ourselves in. So I am grateful as a mother that this resource is available. And I hope that, like myself, others will take advantage of these resources. I have learned plenty of things going through the toolkit that I plan to use as a parent to help with my own personal family and for my son. So with that, thank you so much for allowing me a few minutes to say hello and share my experience with you all. But congratulations just for everyone who's been a part of this. It is very well done, and I am sure it will help plenty of families, students, educators, teachers, admin folks, whoever, that are touching the lives of millions of children everywhere. So thank you all. Thank you, team, for a job well done. Good luck today. Thank you.
Thanks, Monica. Now, Nakia Green Young, our mental health wellness coordinator, and Catherine Cooper, one of our regional prevention specialists, are going to give you a tour of the toolkit.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. We thank you so much for joining us this evening. I wanted to just share with you some information about the toolkit, and we are going to share, Catherine and I will share all of the information, the different highlights of the toolkit. I'm Nakia Green Young, and I want to tell you how it evolved, how we got here. So during the summertime, we decided that we were hearing across the state the fears and the challenges of COVID-19 and schools opening. So one of the things that we decided was we needed to give some type of resources. We needed to do what we do best at DBHDD, and that's wellness and care. And we needed to make sure that we provided some resources and some resilience coping skills for parents, teachers, and youth across the state of Georgia, as well as educators. So that's how this came about. It was a team effort, and we decided that we would put together a wellness toolkit. However, it changed into a website, which was even more awesome. So we have put together this website. We plan on expanding this website from elementary to college age with more resources for youth, parents, teachers, educators. So look forward to much more. But what we'll show you tonight is what is encompassed right now and how you can utilize the toolkit, basically. I want you to know that this was truly a labor of love. We want you to share it with your families. We want you to share it with your communities, your networks. We want you to share it with the parents and the teachers and educators across the state. We want you to share it with anyone you think it will help. So now I'm gonna have Catherine Cooper. She's one of our regional prevention specialists in our office. Oh, well, Catherine's alerting me that I need to tell you the toolkit purpose. So as you can see, the purpose is there. The purpose of this toolkit, the goal of the Resiliency and Wellness Toolkit is to provide information and resources to students, parents, and educators in the face of COVID-19 pandemic. The resources contained in this toolkit have been specially selected by us at DBHDD to provide assistance for students to return to school, as well as beyond COVID-19. We will have resources and ongoing information on this toolkit. The Resiliency and Wellness Toolkit includes information on behavioral health and wellness, learning resources, parenting resources, and activities for students. So Catherine Cooper, who is one of our regional prevention specialists, who also was very involved in helping with the toolkit, she's going to take us through some of the highlights of the toolkit. Thank you, Catherine.
Thanks, Nakia, and thank you for going over this. So what we have done is created this toolkit, and it's really important because this toolkit is for students, parents, and educators, and those are who we're really focusing on and encouraging people to use of this toolkit. So our goal is to provide all types of resource information for those people. So for students, the toolkit is primarily focused on providing information to assist with virtual learning and ways to cope with stress, provide those healthy coping tools. And then also we have fun links to resources and different activities. For parents, these are tailored resources to provide information for children to help them succeed, to provide coping skills, to help really build up that resilience for your children. We have also included information about how parents can talk to their children about COVID-19 and just other stressful and traumatic events. And then for educators, we have included information to assist with the return of students to school, whether that's in person or virtual, and ways to really support our teachers and any tools to, again, foster that resiliency and wellness for their students. So as you can see, this is our website, and you can see how we have it all laid out here. And then when you scroll down onto the page, you can see the 8 resource categories here. We have them all divided up. The toolkit is really easy to use because we have so many resources. We had to create these different categories. So each category includes website links, materials, downloadables, all sorts of resources that we think that students, parents, and educators can utilize. So for example, you'll go to one of these pages and you'll click on, for example, activities and tools. So here on the activities and tools page, you can find videos, which we'll be referencing, talking about later, as well as different organizational toolboxes and toolkits that other organizations have created that we find would be really useful, as well as some different fun activities for students. So here there's a coloring and activity book that's really dedicated for ages 8 to 12. And this includes printable activities that coloring, focus on learning about the brain as well as mental health. And then, like I said earlier, we have resources for parents on how to talk about COVID. I know that we've kind of become part of a world where COVID has become normal, but it's still important to know how to talk about this disease and talk about the different changes to our lives that are happening as a result of COVID with your children. So those are some of those activity resources page. I encourage everybody to take a bit more of a look on this page. You can also go and find all of these resources and resource tabs by coming up to this resource button and scrolling down. So I want to show you guys the downloadable resources as well. So we have a number of different resources that are free to download, free to utilize. We really encourage you to do that. And they are things like posters from different websites. You can be directed over and use these websites, whether it's in your classroom or with your children when you're just talking about the importance of talking about your feelings and having a good mental health. These are great resources to use. We also have brochures and flyers on various topics that really dive into prevention and the work that we're kind of doing. And then we also have my favorite feature here are some fun resource desktops, wallpapers. So they're all positive social messaging. And what these downloadable desktops can do, if you are doing virtual learning these days, you always have to have a nice fun desktop or Zoom background. You can download these and set these as your Zoom background. So when you are either in the classroom teaching or as a student, you can have a nice background as well. So there are so many more resources. As we can see, there's the activities, tools, resources directly related to COVID, behavioral health and wellness, substance abuse prevention, suicide prevention, learning resources, and data and research that you can all go through and explore those throughout our site. We also include a link to emergency mental health service lines. And a couple of lines that we really want to highlight today is the Georgia COVID-19 emotional support line. So this is where you kind of can go with anybody you know, or if you are kind of struggling with a bit of the stress or feeling overwhelmed by COVID or anything that's going on in your life, you're welcome to call this line and you'll be able to talk with a counselor and really utilize this way to kind of talk and go through those feelings that you're experiencing. And they can also connect you with any additional resources that you may need. Second line that we really want to talk about is this Georgia Crisis and Access Line, or GCAL line. This is really primarily focused for if you or anyone you know is experiencing a mental crisis. We really encourage you to call, text, or even download the My GCAL app to be connected with services during a crisis. I recommend that everybody take down this phone number, the 1-800-715-4225, or download the My GCAL app, or even bookmark this page to keep it on hand in case you ever are experiencing a mental crisis or around someone that is experiencing a mental health crisis. So this is just a quick look at our page, and I want to bring it right back to the top. And there's so much more that you can explore and find all these resources here on this page. We also have all of the same resources listed on the opioidresponse.info website under resources. So these are two places that you can find our toolkit. So take a look and check it out. And again, this website is resiliencetoolkit.org. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. So we're going to move on now to our guest speaker, and we're so excited to have her with us today. She's got a wonderful story to share with everyone about resiliency, and hopefully she's going to do a little spoken word for us. So our guest today is Ms. Imani McGee Stafford, and Imani is a former 6'7" center for the Atlanta Dream. She's a WNBA player. And Imani has something in common with many of you, that right now Imani is taking a break from her basketball career, and she is a student as well. She's in law school right now, so I know that she can really relate to every one of the students out there. But not only is Imani tall in stature, she's tall in character as well. And she's just a motivating force to be reckoned with in terms of promoting mental wellness. And so, Imani, I'm not going to delay it any longer. I'm going to turn it over to you to share what you will with the students, parents, and teachers today. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel so privileged to be here and speak with you guys. And I think the work you're doing is so relevant, and it's amazing that you've had the chance to build that toolkit. I think it's super helpful, and hopefully everyone will utilize it to the best of their abilities. So I'm going to start with the poem, and then I'll get into a little bit about my story and why I'm here. So this is called Thoughts in a Pandemic. We spend a lot of time with ourselves lately. And for some of us, that means we've learned so much about ourselves, started in businesses, and taken the break we didn't even know we needed. We've loved harder, enjoyed the time with our children, our partners. We've taken up new crafts and projects. But also, for some of us, it's mean our dreams have seemed to continue to drift further and further away. Our goals feeling unattainable, our bills mounting up. These days have become long, our responsibilities overwhelming, the morning only bringing more anxiety. For some of us, we have learned our bodies are not valued, that riots and protests and marches and loss, so much loss, still won't make us look human. We have learned our government doesn't see us, that without money and resources, this pandemic seems to hit us harder. If anything, we have all learned this pandemic has taken so much more from us than our concerts and festivals and sports. It has taken the hug we didn't know we needed, the impromptu visits. But my, how we have grown, how we have learned we are not alone if we don't want to be. And maybe really, we've learned we are not okay. And that is okay too. We have learned that we are brave and selfless, and we continue to show up. Even we have been told over and over again that this work is not needed. Our very existence is rebellion, is revolution. This pandemic did not take our fight. It cannot take our hearts. It will not take our purpose. So yeah, that was my poem. Thank you guys for having me. And I think we're in a weird time right now, right? I don't think any of us have experienced just the level of, I guess, trauma from all angles, right? Not only are we losing our jobs and having to homeschool our children and be around in a new situation and worrying about where our next bill is, how we're going to pay our next bill, and how are we going to interact with this new system and this new way of life. We're also doing this by ourselves a lot. And I think for some of us, it's been very overwhelming, right? We kind of felt like we aren't super parents, and it's been hard to manage our kids all by ourselves and be with them and keep them entertained and keep them involved. You know, like I'm currently in law school and I have a 3.5 hour class on Fridays, and I struggle staring at the screen for 3.5 hours. So I think it's been very hard to get our 8-year-olds and our 10-year-olds to really involve in this new format. So my biggest thing I've been saying when I've been talking to people about this new time is give yourself a break. Give yourself a break. The fact that you're even logged in here shows how much you care about your job and care about your family and care about making the best of a very unfortunate situation that we all are in right now. And I think look around and acknowledge that we're all doing the best we can, and we're all kind of feeling this new way of life and struggling a bit. And some of us aren't, right? When quarantine started, we all thought it was going to be a month, 2 months, right? So everyone was, if you're not starting a new business, you're not doing enough. And if you haven't completely redecorated your house, then you've just been wasting time. But in reality, right, those things were a privilege. And some of us were able to do those things, and we've come out of quarantine and moved into this new chapter in our lives, but some of us didn't, some of us weren't. And that's not a negative thing. And that's not something that's talking down on you or anything of those sorts. And I think the best thing I think that's come out of this pandemic is that we've all had a chance to really inventory our mental health. I think the conversation around mental health has always been, you either have mental illness or you're great and you're perfect and these things don't affect you. In reality, we all have mental health. The question is, where are we on the spectrum, right? Are we dealing with mental illness? Or are we just simply having a bad day or a bad month, right? And figuring out where we lie on that spectrum and how to check in with ourselves. So for me, a little bit about my backstory. I grew up in an abusive household. I hate saying that because my parents are great people. It just was an unfortunate situation. They trusted the wrong people with me and so forth. I was sexually abused growing up, and that caused me to be very depressed growing up. And I tried to take my life 3 times before the age of 16. And that culminated with me being committed the first couple of weeks of my junior year of high school. And while things didn't really get amazing after that, I did stop trying to take my life and kind of figure out how to be here and how to live and how to thrive. And I didn't really get the mental health resources I needed until college. I went to the University of Texas on a full ride scholarship. And there I got all the mental health services that my family didn't either believe in or we couldn't afford, right? I grew up in a Southern Baptist household. As much as my dad tried to be progressive, he didn't understand why I wasn't okay. He thought it was me being a brat or it was me just being difficult because he couldn't see the signs, right? He didn't know that I was being sexually abused. He just knew I had lights, I had food, and why was I not okay? Which is a very common thing for parents. And so when I finally left home and came back and told my father what I had been going through after I kind of worked through it myself, it really strengthened our bond because he understood why we fought like cats and dogs my final years living with him. And so when I was in college, I kind of figured out why I'm still here, right? I figured out why my 3 suicide attempts did not work. It's because God has his hands on me and I have a purpose. And my purpose is using my platform I got through basketball to talk about mental health and sexual violence and healthy relationships and kind of be the person I needed when I was younger. I was drafted to the WNBA in 2016. I played for 2 years for Chicago. And then I played the next 2 years with Atlanta, the Atlanta Dream. And I recently was traded to Dallas this past season before I decided not to play and take a break to go to law school. So I've tried my hardest to utilize this platform that sports gives me to share my voice and share my story, because I know when I was going through these things, I definitely thought that this story wasn't mine, that no one had ever dealt with these things, and nobody that looked like me dealt with mental health. I didn't see a Black woman living successfully with mental health or dealing with mental health in a public emotion. Like I grew up in the time of, kids should be seen and not heard. What happens in our household stays in our household. And all those things are great things. And it's not a negative thing, but that made me feel as though no one had dealt with these things. So when I kind of shared my story and received the outpouring of so many people from the extent of like people I've known my entire life that had these same similar instances happen to them or have been dealing with mental illness or dealing with their mental health and struggling with that, it really just reinvigorated me and helped me figure out like why I had these struggles. So I try my hardest to tell my story. I am bipolar. I figured that out a couple years ago. It's made my life a lot smoother. Now that I figured that out. And so for me, my mental health and managing my mental health will always include medicine, it'll always include a therapist. That's something that I can't sacrifice. But for other people, it might just be taking 20 minutes at the end of your day to catalog and unwind. It might just be like I have a daily prayer journal, and that really helps me. So, you know, like your mental health and how you manage that will look different from person to person, but it's important. It does not matter what it looks like. It's just something that needs to be checked and worked on for you, you know? And I completely acknowledge, now that I'm on the other side, I grew up without health insurance. If I wanted to go, the little bit of therapy I did do when I was younger, it was at the church, you know what I mean? So I do acknowledge the privilege it is to say that I can go to therapy and I can get the medicine I need. And we're not all in that same financial space, or even in an active environment where we're no longer in danger to seek help. And that is a very real thing, which is why I think that the toolkit is super awesome, because it kind of puts all of these resources right at our fingertips. But I think my biggest thing, especially in this pandemic, which has kind of forced us to isolate even more than we normally do, is just to know you're not alone. Know that your struggles are real, no matter how big or how small. We often kind of play the oppression Olympics, I like to say. You know, we say, well, it could be worse. I know that my friend is going through this, but what you're going through matters, no matter how big or how small. And give yourself space to not be okay. Give yourself space to have negative emotions. Figure out how to handle them, how to cope with them, and move forward. But we have to deal with these things, no matter how uncomfortable they may be. So yeah, no, you're not alone. If no one else cares about you in this world, Imani does. And I'm sure there's so many more people around you that do. And while this time has been hard, we're gonna get through it. We'll get to the other side. Teachers, thank you so much for doing this work, because I know that this has been so hard for you to transition to an entirely new platform and figure out how to be the best teacher you can on the internet. I'm completely aware of how hard this is, so I thank you even more. But yeah, thank you guys for having me. Thank you guys for listening to a little piece of my story. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, anything. Do not be afraid to reach out. I often respond to my messages, because I know that sometimes you just need somebody to know. You just need to know that somebody cares about you. And I do, and we all do. And I think everybody that's been on this panel, and I think even, you know, DD8, they've been working hard to let you know that we care, and we're trying to figure out how to get through this together. So yeah, thank you guys so much for having me.
So I think Nakia is going to introduce our next speaker.
Yes, thank you so much, Imani. Thank you, Imani, for a great wellness message. We appreciate your time. Let's see, the next speaker that we have is Cheryl Benefield. Cheryl Benefield is the Mental Health and Well-Being Coordinator at the Georgia Department of Education. So we really wanted someone from the Georgia Department of Education to come on and give us a message and speak with us today about our toolkit, which is definitely designed to help them as well. Cheryl?
Thank you so much, Nakia, and thank y'all for having me this afternoon. You know, we're starting the school year, as everybody has said, in a way that we've never done before. It's different for everybody, for students, for families, for educators. No matter what teaching modality you're in, everything just feels like it's a little off kilter and a little out of sorts. So we're really excited for our partnership with DBHDD and for these fantastic resources they've offered us. At the department, we are really committed to focusing on the whole child, because we know that through connectedness and well-being, that's how our students find themselves okay and healthy enough and well enough to be able to learn. We have so many students that are like Imani and who are struggling with their mental health. And a few years ago, my son was one of those students. So my experience in my own family and what we went through really drives the work that I do, and it informs the work that we do at the Department of Education. I want to encourage you to take advantage of these resources on the Resiliency Wellness Toolkit. There's a lot of things there for students, but there are so many good things there for the adults, for parents, for families, and for our educators. If you haven't checked out the 2x2 series for self-care and wellness, do that. They're recorded. You can do it on your own time when it's convenient for you. Take advantage of these resources that are out there and reach out for help and support when you need it. whether it's from us at the Department of Education or from our friends at the Department of Behavioral Health and Disability. We'll be more than happy to support in any way we can and to try to connect you to the resources to help you all get through this turbulent time. And now it's my great honor to introduce our next speaker, Tracy Nance Tinley. Tracy is the instructional mentor and interventionist for Burgess Peterson Academy at Atlanta Public School, and she is the 2020-2021 Georgia Teacher of the Year. Tracy.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It is such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for this fabulous invitation, and welcome, 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 parents, students, and teachers to this fantastic new school year. It is certainly not what we expected it to be, but I have to tell you, never before have I been so impressed with Georgia educators and parents. You know, we tend to, some of my colleagues earlier had mentioned that, you know, we tend to hear a lot of the negative things in the media, but when you listen in on your child's teacher on the computer, or when I'm popping into my teachers' classrooms, and when I'm talking with educators across the state, teachers are showing up. And I don't mean just turning on their Zoom screens. I have seen educators doing parades. I have teachers who are having their students build forts for Fort Friday to get comfy and read in. Just yesterday, my own daughter was with her teacher and they acted out the French and Indian War. And then the very next day blasted off into outer space in a homemade rocket that she gathered with boxes and construction paper. So keep showing up, educators. It's absolutely fantastic. And along those lines, you know, people keep telling us how superhuman teachers are. And I believe that. I believe that we are superheroes, right? You know, and a lot of superheroes even wear masks these days. But that doesn't mean that superheroes don't need a moment. It doesn't mean that superheroes don't need a break, a moment of reflection, some self-care, because even superheroes rely on those around them to help out. And so remember how huge your impact is. And if nothing else, let that encourage how well you take care of yourselves and how much time you spend helping students take care of themselves. There's a quote that I like to use just describing the ripple impact of, you know, a teacher and their heart. And my own personal story is the story of the impact that great Georgia teachers have had on their students. And that quote is, "You can count the number of seeds in an apple, but you cannot count the number of apples in a seed." You see, we touch so many lives as educators, as parents even, and that impact ripples out. Because as we pass on our knowledge and what we model for our students, it has a forever lasting impact. And so I need you to take care of yourselves. A rule that I like to follow and that I teach my students, I tell them every single day, do 3 things for you, and then 3 things for someone else. 3 for you, 3 for me is what I like to tell them. Take care of yourself. We need you. And I know that Superintendent Woods absolutely echoes that sentiment. You know, this is not a year for test prep, regardless of whether or not we get the federal waiver. This is a year for taking stock of our children's social, emotional, and yes, academic needs. And recognizing that people are facing all types of barriers. And so take care, model this self-care for students. They are going to learn it by hearing you talk aloud and think aloud, whether that's your child or your students in the virtual classroom or the physical space. Take time to acknowledge how you're feeling and, importantly, to validate it. Like, yeah, I know this is hard. This is really, really hard. But you know what? We can do hard things. So I appreciate you so much. I thank you for the ways that you are showing up. And just know that you have so many cheerleaders out there. And I am one of your biggest ones. I appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. And thank you for the shout out on our 2x2s, DBHDD's 2x2s every Tuesday. and Thursday at 2 o'clock. And thank you so much, Tracy, for your message. We need superheroes like you, Tracy, and I see why you are the Georgia Teacher of the Year. Thank you so much, Cheryl and Tracy, for giving Georgia and us awesome messages. Next, we have on our agenda, Layla Fitzgerald. Layla Fitzgerald is the program manager over the Georgia Apex programs across the state in several schools, and also the mental health houses across the state, as well as the SLC, the System of Care Innovation Organizations. I'm hoping I said all of your titles. Layla is a great DBHDD, I guess we would call her a hero at DBHDD. She's working across the state in so many different areas. So Layla, there you go. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Hero, that's a new one. So I'll take that with stride. I am Layla Fitzgerald, and I'm the program manager over our Georgia Apex program, which is our school-based mental health program where we're in over 600 schools across the state, providing mental health services within the schools. Well, we were in the schools, but now we're providing that via telehealth medicine and virtual sessions, whether that's individual sessions, family sessions, or group sessions. So we have coordinated with our schools and partners and continue to provide those services to our students across the state in collaboration with the schools still while we're on virtual learning. Some of our schools have gone back into the schools and some of them are still virtual. So our providers are working with those school districts and helping them to support their children and parents as they move throughout whatever setting that they're in. But I am here today to really talk to you about a new campaign that we have just launched this past Suicide Prevention Week. You can move all the way to Free Your Feels campaign since that's what we're here for today. And the Free Your Feels is just that, what everybody has been talking about tonight, about releasing your feels, making the conversation normal, making it very normal for us to talk about how we're feeling and making sure that we understand that some of these feelings are normal and it does not equate to a mental illness. So we have to get individuals normalizing that conversation, and we're hoping that Free Your Feels can do that. Free Your Feels was launched last week. DBHDD worked with Voices for Georgia's Children to develop the campaign, and we have three main objectives. The first is to empower young people to speak out fearlessly and very real about what's going on in their lives. And then the second thing is we want to encourage their parents, their adults, or their peers to listen to them judgment-free. The third thing, we would like to connect them to someone or something that can help support them, whatever phase they're in this mental challenge. So again, we want to speak, listen, and connect. Again, we want to join OBHP, Office of Behavioral Health, in the release of this toolkit, because this is one of the resources that we provide throughout the Free Your Feels toolkit. So again, Free Your Feels has a microsite, www.freeyourfeels.org. And within that microsite, you will find sample posts that you can put on your social media. You'll find ways to connect with your young people. You'll find resources such as the Behavioral Health Prevention Resiliency and Wellness Toolkit. But you'll also find resources how to talk to your children, how to talk to parents who are pregnant with their child. So it goes from birth to adulthood on how to provide resources for individuals to normalize that conversation. Imani said she didn't find out and get services until she got to college. There's resources on there for individuals who are in college, because we know that sometimes you may not have that support back home until you leave home. So we want to make sure we're providing those resources for all individuals, whether it's birth, a parent who's pregnant, or a person going off to college who's needing some more support for themselves. We are encouraging everyone to join us on this campaign to Free Your Feels. So go visit the website. I will drop my information in the chat box for you to reach out if you would like you or your organization to free your feels. We want this to be a statewide campaign. We want all of you to join in. You are able to edit the post to make it your message from your organization or your agency. So we've partnered with individuals like DeKalb and Department of Education to make sure we're pushing the message they want to push across to their students. So again, this is Free Your Feels. It's a youth mental health awareness campaign. We are so excited to launch it across the state of Georgia, and we're hoping that you all will join us in freeing your feels moving forward. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you, Layla, and thank you for sharing that information. Thank you. Next up, we are going, Jill, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, Jill, we are going to, we have something special and exciting. Go ahead, Jill.
Yes, we do. We have a video message now to all the students from a first grader. Elise J is a 6-year-old aspiring news journalist who attends Kimberly Elementary School. She lives in Atlanta with her mom and her older sister. And aside from sharing fun news stories, Elise enjoys playing with dolls, coloring, and cooking with her family. I think the jury's still out for her on virtual learning, but she's got a great spot at home where she does her virtual school learning every day. So let's go ahead and hear from Elise.
Hi guys, I'm Nasir. Today is Elise Live News. Today we are going to be talking about school, and as you can see here, this is my class. So now that you know we're in virtual school, we have to stay away from each other, but we still can be on the computers talking to our friends, whoever you know, your teacher. This year I'm in first grade, and isn't that exciting? But it's not hard. It's easy peasy, and I very love my teachers. They are the best, like the bomb. Let me show you my classroom. I have my setup, numbers, and then I have my computer, and also the tablet that my teacher had gave me from my class to social study and stuff like that, and to work. And I have an apple. So for my work, when I get hungry, you always eat fruits so you can get more activity, you get more stuff, you get more hyper for school. So that's why I'm doing a news report to show you guys how school really works at home. I kind of like going to school because it's the best. You get to learn, you get to do anything. And school is kind of fun. I really like fun, so cheer for school. Whoever made up school, you're the best. Teachers, if you're watching this, bye. This is the Elise Live News.
All right. That was Elise, and we were so excited that she was able to send us a live newscast. Next, we have Kathy Winholt McDade. Kathy is our Sources of Strength coordinator across the state in several schools across the state with Sources of Strength with our state opioid response initiative. Kathy.
Hi, Nakia. Thanks everyone for having me. I'm glad to be a part of this event today. It's very exciting. For those who aren't familiar with Sources of Strength is an evidence-based program that is designed to prevent suicide as well as prevent substance abuse initiation. So it's very important, especially during this time where people are isolated by themselves. They need more and more support in this area. So we are in actually a number of schools across the state. This started out in middle and high schools. We have 60 schools across the state, equally divided across the state, that are implementing it in middle and high schools. And come this October, next month, we will be starting this in elementary schools across the state as well. And we have 6 of those elementary schools that we'll be starting in. So it's very exciting to be able to meet people across the state and be doing this work. Now, we've been talking about giving ourselves a break. So I'd like for us to take 2 minutes to be able to give ourselves a break. I have an activity for us that's called Yes, Please, and No, Thank You. If I say something that you are excited about and you agree with it, say, yes, please, raise your hands. If you aren't that excited about it, you could still say, yes, please. If you aren't for it and you're really not into it, then you say, no, thank you. Or you could just make a no, thank you. So are you ready? Everybody participate, okay? All right, the first thing, what about musicals? I see some yes, please, and I see some no, thank yous. We've got all kinds. How about sporks? Those spoon, forky looking things that you might get in takeout? Who likes sporks? Yes, please, or no, thank you. Let's think about something else. What about lemon heads, those sour candies? Yes, please, or no, thank you. All right, we have one more, and I want to see your response to this. What about sweet tea? Do I have some yes, please, or no, thank you? Thank you all for participating with me. I hope that you realize that we can all have different feelings about things and still have a pleasant conversation about it. Keep that in mind. All right, thank you. Going back to you, Nakia.
Thank you, Kathy. Again, Kathy is our Sources of Strength coordinator for the state. And Sources of Strength is in several schools across our state with our state opioid response initiative. So thank you again, Kathy. Next up, we have Siobhan Jones. Siobhan is our Youth Suicide Prevention Coordinator in our Office of Behavioral Health Prevention, and she has a message for us. Siobhan?
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about this toolkit. And I wanted to talk to you all today. As Nakia mentioned, I am the Youth Suicide Prevention Coordinator. So I talk about all things youth related as it relates to suicide prevention. And I just wanted to share a few warning signs of suicide. I know that we're all virtual learning, so it can make it very hard for teachers to be as aware. But right now it is a job of the teachers, parents, and community. So I wanted to highlight a few warning signs for suicide. And one of them can be changes in appearance, thoughts, and feelings, prior suicide attempts that you may know of, or they're sleeping too much or sleeping too little. Maybe they're not logging on to their Zoom classroom or logging on every now and again. Also, they're preoccupied with death. Suicide, there's not one factor or one thing. And so it's really important to identify a lot of different warning signs because more warning signs can heighten the risk. Now more than ever, we're working from home, our kids are at home, and so all of us need to make sure that we are on heightened alert and that we're paying attention to these things. But because we are at home, I want to make sure that we are really enforcing resiliency. And we're learning as we kind of go through this year that nothing is normal. And it's so important to encourage our students, encourage our teachers, and let everyone know that although things are a little different right now, at some point things are going to change. So you want to make sure that we tap into that resiliency. So some ways that you can do that for your students is encourage them to take breaks. I know being logged in on Zoom can be stressful, it can be tiresome. So making sure that they are taking breaks when those times come up in their schedule, getting up, stretching their legs, things like that. Also help them prioritize self-care individually and as a family, making sure that we are prioritizing our mental health, that we are addressing our mental health, checking in with them from time to time to make sure that they're okay. Maintaining a routine. Those routines, especially for our younger kids, are so important. So making sure that you have a schedule, something they look forward to every day to be able to kind of take them through the day that they can anticipate. And last, foster connections with their friends as much as possible. I know some kids are back in school, some kids are still virtual learning, but we're still all socially distanced. And so making sure that we're still fostering those connections and finding some great ways to encourage our kids. That's why we're so excited about the toolkit, because there's so many great resources in the toolkit to really help to support and foster resiliency within our students. One of the videos that we have in the toolkit is a creative video that has gone viral. by 2 teachers from Dougherty County. And they found a great way to encourage their students. Catherine actually is going to go ahead and pull it up so you can go ahead and know where to find it in our toolkit. Thank you, Catherine, I'm sorry. And we'll go ahead and shoot it back over to Nakia.
Thank you, Siobhan. Okay, so we have come to the end of our program, but first I really, really and truly want to thank all of our guests. I want to thank Cheryl, I want to thank Monica, Jill for joining us, Imani for joining us, Tracy, I'm making sure that I get everyone, I don't leave anyone out, Kathy, Siobhan, and I want to thank you for joining us and spending time this evening and seeing what we have to offer. We at DBHDD and Office of Behavioral Health Prevention and Federal Grants are so excited about this toolkit. And we know that it is going to be very resourceful. And we know that we are giving wellness tips that people really need in this time. It's such an unprecedented time in our country, and Georgia, we are here for you, and we really, really, really want to give as many resources and information as we can. And the best way for us to do this for youth, parents, teachers, and educators was to develop this website, which is available to everyone. So we plan on updating the website on a regular basis. We will be sending out more information. And tomorrow we will send out information on how it will all go live. Thank you so much for participating. Thank you to our team for working on this toolkit night and day and us getting it completed. And our guests today. We thank you so much, and y'all have a great evening, and everyone stay well, and we are all in this together. Thank you.